Okay, who's breaking stuff?
All right, this is cool. We haven't tried it yet with more than 2 people at one time, so I see 4 people on Facebook. That's awesome. We're still waiting for Katie Anna and Jill and Noel Smith.
Are you getting any feedback on my end when you're talking? Because I can use headphones if that's easier.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where I've got.
I think the feedback will be coming from, I think, Lloyd, you might have to use headphones.
Or not look on the monitor. Let me. Yeah. Is that better?
Yes. I just had to turn down all the volume on all my devices because I already know that that'll be the thing. Oh boy. What's that behind you, Lloyd?
All right, it looks like everybody's here.
Hello.
Morning.
All right.
Morning.
I see everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get started right away because we are live on Facebook. And I want to thank each of you for being here. This is, when I was thinking about what was next for doing with Divine Collaboration virtual expos, I'm like, well, we've had all these people come on and share their gifts. And then I was like, how do we take it to the next level? And it's like a Q&A. That sounds pretty cool to me. So I sent a couple emails and said, do you want to be part of it? And here we are. We have Katie Anna, and many of you know Katie Anna is my mom. And she is the teacher of soul, a transformational author, speaker, retreat and workshop facilitator. She embraces life as a mystical, magical, and spiritual journey, one she chooses to consciously walk with God. Katie Anna fully embraces the life of a modern day mystic.
Oh, beautiful.
Next, we have Walking Crow.
Hey, Walking Crow.
Hey, everybody.
Crow is a transformational shamanic healer, life coach, mentor, medicine man, drum maker, seer, storyteller, philosopher, speaker, and media host whose emphasis is working with those who want to change their lives. His work in private practice includes workshops that teach others how to be in their bodies and come to peace with life's traumas through the chakra system and subtle energy and emotional body. As a shamanic drummer, Walking Crow uses a 27-inch powwow drum to help others journey into their other dimensions, to find their spirit guides, spirit animals, gifts, healings, or to just find answers in an organic way. David Lineball. David is a Reiki
Hey,
master in
David.
quantum
Hey.
modalities and a sound healer. He's been practicing transcendental meditation for over 40 years, as well as Deepak Chopra's primordial sound meditation for 5 years. And he just likes to share the experience that he has with other people. Jill Smith. Jill is a Reiki master, a Mayan Iraku crystal healing master. She's a voice for the star beams. Jill channels the Pleiadians. She's an earth medicine practitioner who communicates and works with the plants, rocks, and animals of Mother Earth.
Hey, Angie.
She's bringing the beauty of Native American craftsmen to the Northeast United States. They've been visiting and bringing jewelry back from the Southwest tribes and craftsmen for many, many years. Noel Smith is a Reiki master, a Mayan Iraku crystal healing master, and Noel is a link between the sky people and humans. He receives messages from the sky people on how to navigate this time on Mother Earth. Noel is an earth medicine practitioner, and he works with the elementals, the plants, the rocks, the animals, and the sky people. And Noel also has a passion for crystal skulls, which if you can see in his background, there's a handful of crystal skulls. And then Angie Yangst. Angie is an earth medicine practitioner specializing in crystal healing and shamanic healing techniques. She's certified as a certified crystal healer, an advanced crystal master, Usui Reiki master, teacher, and earth medicine practitioner. Angie has been reading tarot for 30 years and is a member of the American Tarot Association. Angie trained through Hibiscus Moon Crystal Academy, where she now serves as curriculum specialist and crystal coach. Angie is also a published writer and sacred artist. She offers both in-person and distance one-on-one healing sessions that combine crystal healing, shamanic healing, Reiki, drum and rattle, breath work, plant medicine to facilitate healing in her clients. So these are the people we've got. And I'm Lloyd Runkle with Etheric Connections.
Lloyd.
Yay, Lloyd.
This is awesome. I'm again, when I started to look at how we go forward from having people come on and sharing different modalities that they do or meditations or being in the moment, like, well, what's a better way than to ask some questions of people that pertain to where we are today? And we know that right now on Mother Earth, these massive changes are happening with the consciousness of humanity. And many people have become frozen in where they are right now. And how do we move forward from that? How do we take and help people find a way from where they are today in the midst of these changes, where they're frozen and they're told, we've got to stay at home, we can't be going out. So how do we transmute that energy? And I'm going to call it fear, because a lot of people are in fear right now. A lot of people are angry. A lot of people are just frozen in the energies. And how do we
That doesn't mean any of us, right?
What's that?
That doesn't include any of us.
Oh, hey, we all know that there's times where
Nobody's wearing a mask.
There's times where the energy around us, we allow it to pull us away from our center. And that's part of what this is about. How do we stay in the center as a spiritual being coming from a place of love, even when there's so many opinions around us? And how do we shift that energy? How do we transmute fear to love? And I've got a list of questions. Let me get to them. So the first question, and I'm just going to start at the top of my screen, which is Walking Crow. How do you be love while being the observer of change?
Well, understanding that I'm a divine being, I'm connected directly to source. I had to spend a lot of time letting go of my dogma, right? The false sense of divine source, the false sense of being, that story, that other story. So being able to do that and being in the awareness of my divinity, I'm able to use the things that happen around me as stepping stones, and use those stepping stones to express love to other people and hold space for them while they're in fear, while they're angry, while they're going through all those emotions and have no clue on how to take hold of the life raft, if you will, or the lifesaver, life preserver, right? I feel like the six of us, seven of us, I think there's seven of us here, are light rafts, life rafts for other people. We're the examples of how we walk. For me, I have to be really careful of the way I speak, and not to change the way I speak because of the way I feel, but speak to the way I feel truly and in truth, and just allow people to know that it's okay to have these feelings. It's okay to be in it. It's okay to be afraid. Anger is just a way to cover up the fear, right? So we don't know what to do. We don't know how to be scared as little kids. I mean, no one ever comforted us most of the time when we were little kids and we were afraid. Now as adults, we still get afraid. We still become afraid, but we step into anger sometimes. We step into belligerence. We step into other areas because we don't know how to handle the fear. It's like a child who gets molested as a little girl or little boy. They grow up with this PTSD thing and they don't know what the anxiety is. They don't know what the anxiety is until we show it to them. But we need to let them know it's okay. It's okay. It's not happening anymore. Be here now. Stomp your feet in the floor. Pick up your drum. Let's do like you catch me on Tuesdays, on whatever day it is I'm doing an online video. I don't do that for me, although I do it for me. I do it for others because others, especially through these times when everybody is scared and everybody's afraid and people kind of lose a sense of what love is. Sometimes love is just showing up for people with a drum, with a rattle, with a voice, with a message, with a mantra, whatever it looks like. Just be what I like to call the selfless tree that keeps on giving, because the tree never sees itself. The tree only sees the other trees, the plants, the sky, the moon, the stars, you, me, the animals, but it never sees itself, but it never ceases giving it either, I hope.
Perfect. All right, so let's go to Jill and ask her that question. How do you be love while being the observer of change?
First of all, you have to kind of figure out, what do I have control of? The other thing we really have control of is ourselves and our own thoughts. If there's a way that you can, you have to stay centered in who you are and focus on that heart center, because that's where God is. And you have to think, if I'm God, what kind of changes would I like to make? Focus on what you really enjoy instead of getting caught up in the fear. When you feel fear, you don't feel so good in your body, and that's kind of a template of, okay, this is telling me that I am in fear. So what can I do to change that? So like I said, focus on what you really enjoy. How would you want your world to look? So right now you're not very satisfied with what's going on because everything that you see out is a reflection of what's going on inside of you, as far as I'm concerned. So whenever I see a situation that I want to change or I want to neutralize, I just picture pink light being surrounded because I think of pink light being love, and I try to bring calmness to that situation. And then I think, well, can I change? Is there something else I can do? And the best thing we can possibly do is to raise our vibration, which is staying out of fear. We have a choice of whether we step into the drama or not. And sometimes we do, because everything is an experience. You know, sometimes you want to experience that for your soul's growth, but you don't have to stay there. So like step in, experience what you want to feel, and then step out and then observe it and look at, okay. And look, I look at everybody's perspective, because everybody has a different perspective, and that's what makes the world change. I'm kind of lost for words here. I know. The only thing I can do is stay centered and be in as much love as possible, and become the change that you want to see out in the world. How's that?
Perfect. All right, Katie Anna, what does it mean to transmute fear to love?
For me, it means I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to transmute fear or transmute the negative, because when you try to do that, you're putting the energy to the very thing you want to change. Mm-hmm. So instead, I go over here and create what I want to experience. Now, I don't have diddle control over what other people are creating. I've heard that from the other teachers. We have no control over what anybody else is creating. But I sure do have control over what I create. Now, for me, there's a pathway to do that. You know that I've wrote the 3 spiritual keys. And for me, it's about converging in love. And this experience, this global experience that we're going through right now, we all knew it was coming. Every one of these teachers, I'm sure you knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming. We've talked as teachers. It's coming. Sometimes I feel like Paul Revere. It's coming, and we had thousands of years to change our lives, thousands of years to change our ways. This just didn't occur overnight. And so for me, it is about not putting energy into that which I don't want to experience, which is the fear, which is, what's going on. Now, that doesn't mean putting a bag over my head. That doesn't mean singing Kumbaya. That means I'm very active over here creating experiences of love. If you want to experience love, then be love. If you want to experience joy, be joy. But we waste, a lot of light workers waste so much time trying to go in to the shadow experience instead of going over here in the energy of what is it that I want to create, which is love. The love is already there. We just got to step into it and be it. Does that answer your question?
It sure does.
All right.
So to you, though, transmuting fear to love means creating an experience of love, and then the fear just goes away.
Yeah, because what we put our energy into, that's spiritual key number 2, taking responsibility for our thoughts and what we're putting our energy into. So if we're putting in our energy into trying to change this experience that is a shitload of tsunami of fear and out of alignment, we're wasting our creative energy. But if we go over here and just every day, during this isolation, every day I have made sure that I experience joy. Yes, I know what's going on. I mean, I'm teaching more classes now than I ever have. I have more private sessions now than I have in a long time. You know, so I'm doing the work with people, but I'm not going in there and trying to eradicate this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that third spiritual key is knowing we can only succeed together. So the more of us that go over here and say, you know, I'm going to create experiences of love. What does that look like as we move forward? We have to, light workers have to change too. We have to change a lot of the ways that we've been looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of light workers, we start as caretakers. We want to change the whole world. You know, well, guess what? The world has changed. And hopefully as we move forward, we're going to take the goodness about what has happened during this time. So that's what I have to say.
Cool. David, what does it mean to you to transmute fear to love?
Well, I'm not sure that people have the capacity to even think about wrestling fear to the ground unless they have hope for the future. They have to have some hope. They have to believe deep down that they have control over their life, like Jill said. So one of the Deepak Chopra, you may know, has this hope meditation series, and with him and Oprah. And yesterday, there was a message that said, self-doubt and fear in the face of uncertainty can paralyze us and blind us to the good options that are available. Even in the midst of fear and anxiety, we always have within us the creative capacity to meet that situation and make use of it for our personal development and growth. So that tells me that when we're in a situation where we're paralyzed by fear, that being paralyzed can make it really, really hard to step back and take the big picture and say, oh, yeah, all I've got to do is wrestle this fear to love. So I guess at this point, my message would be to people, we are human. And as humans, we have the capacity built in to deal with this challenge that's ahead of us right now. We know that we're surrounded by fear. We know that almost all the media and all the government and people like that are instilling us with fear, not intentionally necessarily, but just because that's where they're at. So all the focus of the news that we're getting from almost everywhere is on the downside of what's going on. And the message is continuously you don't have a hope unless we get a vaccine or such things. So this is really, it's out of your control. And that's the message that I've been hearing for months now. But let's step back and think, is it really true that we have no way to control our environment? And I think that absolutely we can control our environment, even in trying times. And the reason I'm totally sure of that is the fact that we're sitting here right now and didn't die out as a species, 20,000 years ago when the first flu went around the world. So how did we survive way back then? Well, we survived by our innate powers. And what are some of those powers? Well, for sure, we're one of the few, maybe the only animal on the planet that without support can live in we can live in a very narrow range of temperature and so on, but we have the creativity that we can recognize a challenge, and we have the ability to control our environment. We can build, at some point, people learned that, hey, it's better to move into a cave than sleep under this wet tree. At some point, we realized, hey, we could move out of that damp cave and we can move into a damp tent, but then we can move. Hey, we can figure out how to move from a tent to a house that's permanent, and we don't have to move because we've learned how to plant food. We don't have to be a migrating, moving hunter-gatherer, and so on. So our innate creativity can't be matched anywhere in the earthly kingdom, as far as I can tell. This is a natural part of us. This is one of our strongest powers. If we get paralyzed with fear, we forget that. Now, we also know that for that same period of time, humans were challenged by health challenges, and over the time we have an immune system that, if it's alive and healthy, must have been pretty effective in getting us to this year. It certainly got us to the beginning of the 20th century and the 21st century, when medicine wasn't so effective, maybe. But we have built in naturally, our body has the intelligence to live with nature and to adapt when there are challenges like viruses and flus and stuff like that. So we exhibit our flexibility and our creativity on a daily basis right now. We don't realize it because we take it all for granted. But every day we make decisions about how we're going to go out and present ourselves in the world. And if it's snowing, most of us don't put on a bathing suit and walk out in the snowstorm and give a middle finger to nature and say, hey, I'm man. You know, we take sensible precautions. We might put on jackets or coats or hats. And we don't think anything about that, but that's a sign of our creativity, that we do that every day. When I go motorcycling, I always wear a helmet. Why? Because, well, I know that if I'm totally at present with myself, with my divine guidance while I'm riding, that divine guidance will warn me if there's gravel on the road around the corner. But just in case I lose that attention, just in case I get swept up in just enjoying the outside, you know, enjoying nature and not paying attention to my higher self, I wear a helmet because I know I could come around a corner and come into some gravel on the road, and that could cause me to put the chrome side down, which is not. So I take a reasonable precaution, I think, by wearing a helmet. I always wear boots because I know that stones fly up for two reasons. One is stones fly up and when you're on the road, and you can get hit in the shins, and the boot mitigates that. And the second reason I wear boots is because I think they look cool. But I always wear boots and a jacket and long sleeves. Why do I wear long sleeves in the summertime? Well, I don't like getting sunburned and windburned. So I'm not opposed to wearing a long sleeve t-shirt if it's 90 degrees out. So every day, we all make these decisions. If we would sit down and think about, we'd say, well, let's go to the grocery store. And then you start thinking about all the dangers and all the risks that we could run into. We would never leave our house. We'd all starve to death. People turning left in front of you. And so on. Someone, you know, but we take reasonable precautions. We get in the car and we leave and we start driving, and we don't even think about what we're doing. A lot of people, most people, I always wear a seatbelt. Is that because I'm afraid? Well, it's not out of fear, really. It's out of, I think, common sense mitigation of risks that I might come across. I've been in accidents where the seatbelt kept me from going through the windshield. My wife was in 2 accidents, 2 different times, head-on collisions. People crossed the line, hit her head on or almost, and the seatbelt saved her. She got brush burns, but that was it. So that seems like a reasonable mitigation for some risks. So every time I go to the store, I don't really think about all the possible things that could happen. I mean, cripe, you could even get out there if you were worried about it. If you wanted to get really deep into it, you could worry about getting hit from the blue ice from airplanes. The blue ice, as you may know, is when the toilet leaks, the blue water freezes on the outside of the plane, and eventually the plane comes down far enough that it melts and the ice falls. It's not a really big, you know, big risk. So anyway, I think that in our current situation, I think number one, we know that we do know that there are a lot of people who have proven that their immune system has already adapted to the virus. We know that New York did a survey of looking to see if they had antibodies in the people's bodies, and there were several times more than the known people that had virus.
David, we're want to keep moving here, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, so my point, so you can have hope because doing some of the things we're doing now with the mask, I think that's a reasonable mitigation. Social distancing at this point is as we're learning about this, is a reasonable mitigation. But the big thing is that our immune systems can handle this if it's healthy. So we can have hope that there's light at past this. And then
Okay,
that's it.
cool. Angie, how do you remain neutral during times of change while staying centered in love?
Well, I think, holding space and some of the things that were talked about before have been so invaluable to me. And when I hold space, I just take people where they're at. I don't pretend like I'm the healer and they're the unhealed. Those aren't words I use in my practice. I'm walking the same path as people that I'm holding space for. So, being able to love and accept all the range of emotions that I have. One of the things I do feel like a shadow walker sometimes because of just holding space, because people often bypass, they don't even know what they're feeling. They're just angry and frustrated and they're stuck, and they have never traced it back to an original pain. They've never traced it back to an original trauma. So a lot of what I do is help people name it, and we name it to tame it, so to speak. And so when I'm saying neutral, it's that I'm not judging whether fear is good or bad. It just is. And once I take shame and judgment out of that, then the fear is actually holding space and being neutral for a child, because that often comes from a childhood place. So for me, it's easy for me to love a child. And so I often look at all my clients and my students and the people I'm interacting with as children. So when I'm staying neutral in that space, it's so easy to love children. And it doesn't matter how old my clients are or anybody I'm interacting with, I can see a wounded child in there, and we all have a wounded child. And so being able to hold space and nurture, that's something that the mother has given us. Mother Earth has shown us, look at how much Mother Earth has healed in the last 2 months since we've been in quarantine, just by, less traffic, less factories. It's that regeneration. We have that capacity in us. So I always ask, Spirit and Mother Earth to work through me to hold space. And again, it's neutral energy, because it's not in judgment and shame, and I'm not bringing more fear to the situation. I'm not saying, yeah, that is scary, and did you think of this? That's kind of scary too. What I'm doing is bringing love and nurturing and acceptance there most of the time. And I notice this in the body too, those places that hurt, that are stuck, where we have traumas, they sometimes just need a voice. And all I need to do is listen to it, and then we move to the next place. I don't need to judge it. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to do anything but just listen to it, sing its song, and tell me its own story of where it came from, how it's changed, and where it's going. And I can help, push it towards the light, and all I do by doing that is loving, and working from that heart center. And, for me, that heart center is based on being an open and clear channel, because if I can just channel that energy from Spirit and from Mother Earth, it's always going to be positive. It's always going to be good. So I'm just trying to stay in that space because I'm hearing a lot of fear. I have people coming to me, I really need a session, but I can't afford it because I'm afraid I'm not going to have a job in 2 weeks. So they're projecting and they're doing all this crazy stuff. So I'm just saying, okay, let's name it. We can talk about money later. Let's deal with the fact that you're afraid to work and heal yourself right now. What's that all about? There's a lot to mine there with our collective trauma around this. And then, moving forward with love is just, it's easy. It's easy because we're all wounded children, and that makes it really easy to love. So that's all.
Okay. Kate Hanna, you have a question?
Yeah. When Angie was speaking, I was like, you know, I'm really good at doing that for my clients. When I'm that healer, you know, I believe that's one of the gifts we do. But when I turn on the television and I hear blah 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 blah, or I get a letter into my email, staying neutral. My son can attest. I was not neutral 6 weeks ago when I got a crazy letter. I only sent it out to both of my kids, and I went, holy blah blah blah, and I went into mother mode, and I was not neutral at all. I gotta save my kids. You know, my kids both went, what the blank happened to mom? You know, so in that mode, I mean, I get it when we're in the healer mode. We all know how to hold that space. But what about me when in my personal journey as person, as a citizen of the world? And so for me, I had to come back to that. Oh boy, Katie girl, you are not grounded. You got to get back into your heart space. You have got to ground, and really work on that grounding in ways you never have before, and get back into that heart space. Because when I sent that email out, I was not neutral. I was into full blown fear. Oh my God, my children, my babies are in danger. You know,
Yeah,
and I see Walking Crow laughing, and I think you get this, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
But I
know,
mean, I get to be a mother bear too. I mean, I am a mother bear when it comes to my own kids. So that's why I need other healers to reel me back in. My
Yeah.
guides, my spirit, my spiritual advisors, my mentors, they're the ones who are saying, whoa, Ange, you know, you can't see clearly in your own situation. I can help others the way I can a mother does their children, giving advice and stuff. But when it's my own kids, yeah, I mean, I'm a bear, and that's how I'm wired. But that's my own stuff, and so that's why we need each other. That's why we have a community. There's not
Absolutely.
one of us holding space, because we have to reel each other in.
you
I've got
know,
my own wounds. I'm not perfect.
when all this started, and the question is about transmuting the fear to love. And I don't know if Lloyd, you saw it, but I was doing a mantra every day, and because people were afraid, they didn't know how to not be afraid, and I see them searching through social media, and you see what they're posting, what they're clicking and sharing and all this stuff. So I have a mantra that my guides gave me a couple of years ago, and it's taking your left hand, placing it over your right heart, your heart, taking your right hand, placing it over your left heart, over your heart, and completing the circle, and just sharing this simple mantra with people. I am where love lives. I am what hope looks like.
Love lives. Oh,
I am where love lives. I am what hope looks like. I am where love lives. I am what hope looks like. You are where love lives. You are what hope looks like. We are where love lives. We are what hope looks like. Now,
can you write that down and send it into the thread?
Yeah, I can send it to you. But I was doing that every day for about three weeks, and then I changed the mantra to the peace in me. The peace in me is the peace in me. The size of the peace in me, right? PIECE, PEACE. And I flipped the words back and forth. And then by the fourth week, I was doing it every other day or every 3 days or twice a week, something. So, and I tapered off because the people's level of fear through this whole thing had kind of tapered off, and they're settled into their homes. They're settled into the nonsense of the media, the nonsense of our government, just all of that stuff. And I was able to just help them because we're the examples, you know, Angie, all of you, we're all the examples of what transmuting can look like, but also being vulnerable in front of them. When I have an emotion come up and I come into tears, I allow them to see me so they can say, oh, thank God. They can drop their shoulders, and they drop the tension, the anxiety, and they unfurl their brow, and they go, oh man, I am not alone in my house. There's somebody I can connect to, right? So, you know, and you know, religion feeds, they feed you with a shovel. They spoon feed you with a shovel. I want to spoon feed people, and we all should spoon feed them with a teaspoon, little bits at a time. We don't have to choke them with the bone. You know, we all know something. Yeah, we all know we know something, but we all know that we don't know. And what I don't know is, oh, I have the awareness of what I don't know. I also have the awareness of what I know. What do you know? And I ask them that question. And it's okay if they don't, and it's okay if they do. Level the playing field is simply what we're doing, you know, and I love that. And I've taken too much time. Thank you.
Cool. All right, Noel,
Yes,
let me see here. Do you find it easy to stay centered right now with all the changes that are happening?
well, I usually do. So everyone has given some great insights and tips there. I'm one, and I always pass this on. Get up in the morning, you go pee, you brush your teeth, and then you ground, and you consciously ground yourself. Use a stone, use a tree, whatever, but you ground yourself into who you are, and you ground yourself into Mother Earth, and you ask for Mother Earth's assistance with intention. And then you set your intention for the day. Now, we're not on social media, even though we are right now, and we appreciate that. Something new for us. But it appears that social media really scares a lot of people. So people need to pay attention to the right social media like they are today and listening. And I'm sure in a little bit they're going to get to make their comments. But we are in control. We are in control of ourselves. And that's powerful, but it's limited. So I'm not in control of anything that Donald Trump does. And I never will be, even though he does push my buttons. And I try not to watch the TV, but I'm not in control of that. So all that's beyond our control.
So how do you stay centered in love when the president's pushing your buttons?
Well, and someone said it earlier, and one of the things that they always tell us is pay attention to the details. And that's a detail that, okay, I have to be aware, catch myself. Okay, that's not within my control. So for me, I know I can't do anything about that. All I can do, and I do every morning, is I send them love. And I send all those leaders and politicians love and ask the guides to assist them in working together for the good of all, the love of all, non-judgment of all, and to honor, respect, and heal Mother Earth. So we are the example. We need to be the good example for others, and we need to be there for others. Others need to be aware that our community is powerful, and our community is there to help each other, always. And some of you have mentioned that already, and the people that are listening to us, they need to ask for assistance. Okay, so you're fearful. Now, the guides have always told me, your guides are always with you, always. They're waiting for us to ask, and to ask something very specific that we want assistance with. So don't be afraid to ask for assistance. Ask, listen, trust what you hear. Don't think you're crazy. and then act on it. 4 simple things that aren't that simple, but that also is being grounded. That's also being aware of all the little details and not the media, da 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 da. And it needs to be practiced time and time again. And the more we practice that, the more we're comfortable with it, and the more that we see it works, and it works for us. And then we're the example and assistance for others that may ask us what we think. And then, as Walking Crow says, it's theirs then. All we can do is set the example, maybe use our right speech and say some things that hopefully will assist them, hopefully, but then it's theirs, and then they go and do with it as they choose. But the more that they see us being grounded, staying in love, staying centered, the more they can draw on that and utilize us in our community to help themselves.
Okay. All right. I'm going to now ask a question, and I'm going to let you guys kind of do a, whoever wants to go first. And let's see, which question do I want to ask? If all things are in divine order, why does the current experience on earth feel so disconnected from love?
Can I answer that?
Absolutely.
I just finished talking about, choking on the bone of spiritual of a dogmatic spirituality. Lack of power is my dogma, right? As I became aware, as I stepped into my knowing and understanding, as I stepped into my hearing, my seeing, not seeing with my eyes, not hearing with my ears, not speaking from my voice or my womb, but hearing and seeing and speaking from my heart. I was able to let go of those things and pick and choose the parts of the word, right? The divine order word is divine order. Word became divine. I say it in that way, so people get weird on me about religion, and I like to speak to it in a way that doesn't feel like a club being beaten with. Understanding my divine order, eventually, because I'm 59 years old, and at 50, this transmutation, transcendence started to happen. It probably started happening long before that, when I got sober and I took spirits away and spirit returned, right? So understanding my divinity and being able to let go of the programming, right? I still have a lot of that. The body is memory. The body never forgets. The body never forgets. The mind may forget, or we may avoid, but the body never forgets. This is my heart space. These are my lungs. Heart, lungs, air. I love, I'm loved. Memory, mammary. This is where we were fed as children. This is the first sound we heard in utero, was the sound of love, the heart space, a whole. It's all encompassing. And if I can let go of that and just understand my divine source and my divine space only as I understand it, not as you have to understand it, not as you need to understand it, but if you want to understand it, I have something to offer you. And I mentioned stepping stones before. Those things that happen in my life that are fearful, that are tragic, that are traumatizing, that are happen but not happen anymore, they become stepping stones to my higher good and your higher good, a whole.
Anyone else on that?
you repeat the question?
Yep. If all things are in divine order, why does the current experience on earth feel so disconnected from love?
It's interesting, Lloyd, just to jump in. I guess I feel so much love right now. Like there is just this collective understanding of oneness that I haven't experienced in a long time until we went into isolation, where, you know, we have to consciously connect with each other in purely energetic ways, you know. And that's been something that I've felt really profoundly. And, you know, I also have the spirituality of powerlessness. And you know, part of the humility that I have to embody as you know, a walker of the, you know, a human, is that I have to understand I am not privy to why things happen while they're happening. Like it takes me, you know, the 2020 vision to figure out why is this all happening. But my spirituality is trust and love. So once I'm trusting that, you know, and that's where the hope and the love comes in. Like I trust the divine. I trust that there will be meaning made out of this for people, and that if we stay centered in connecting energetically, because we can't connect physically right now, that we will be able to change, you know, any fear into love. Like I do believe that there's a 100th monkey effect that will happen if enough of us are energetically connecting to trust and hope and love. So I've been feeling the love, you know, maybe because I also shield myself a little bit from the news and taking what I can. And then, you know, that's part of my self-care, is doing a little bit at a time and then backing off and being able to take what I can. But that's all.
Yeah, and I feel the love too. However, I also see a lot of people that don't feel the love right now.
Yeah.
So.
Jill has her hand up.
Jill?
You said that everything is in divine order, which I definitely believe. And I'm looking at this as a blessing. I really do. I'm looking at this as the earth is healing itself. People are actually getting to see the difference. They're seeing the air being cleaner, the animals becoming more like they should be. And hopefully, if enough people see this and realize how things can actually be in the future, maybe they'll take steps to actually let this happen and to not be part of the negativity. We can actually start creating heaven on earth, which is what we're supposed to be doing. So,
may I say something to Jill?
Yep.
For a diet lot. Part of what I think happens when people hear us talk and we say things like this is a blessing, which I understand 100%. But for the people who are in the shadow of this experience, they see no blessing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they see no blessing. And so for us to say, this has been a blessing, you know, now I hear you and I agree with you 100%. But as teachers, how do we learn a language that, you know, that really conveys what you mean, Jill? Because I know what you mean by this. But for people who have not been able to attend the burials of their loved ones, for people who have lost work, last night I saw one of my students said, I'm not going to make it. I don't have money. I'm a massage therapist, and they're not going to let me be a massage therapist till July. And so when they hear us say it's a blessing, that's when they go, there they go, airy fairy again. So how can you put it's a blessing into words that's going to mean something to people who are right now not understanding that it is a blessing and all is in divine order? I'm challenging you, sister.
okay.
I see the wings go up.
If you look at it as, there's some going to be people who are definitely, they're not going to see the blessing in this yet. Yes, in the future they may, and not being able to be with your loved ones, that I don't know how to deal with that one. Divine order apparently knows. And of course, all we do when we die is change form. So those people are still, our loved ones are still around. They're just in a different form. And anybody can communicate with them if they just quiet their mind and start noticing things. But anyway, to get away from that, in my mind, sometimes I think I have Alzheimer's because it doesn't.
Yeah.
If you look, get out of your fear for a moment. This is what I'm asking. Just get out of the fear of not having enough or being enough, and try to look at the big picture instead of your own mundane ego self right now.
Yeah.
Everybody still has their bills to pay. And luckily, luckily, the government is helping with some of that. But when I say it's a blessing in disguise, is right now we are actually given the time, because people have had no time to be with their families. They've had no time to be with themselves and do the projects that they wanted to get done. And even time, this is a given time to look within, look at ourselves. What do we want? Our spirit has been asking us for a couple of years now to focus on what we do want. Everybody knows what they don't want. It's so easy to know what we don't want. But I even have the same thing. What do I want? What do I want my world to look like? And if we don't have any kind of picture of that, how can we move forward to that? So we don't have control over a lot of things right now, but we do have control over what we do with ourselves. Yes, we're still going to have that those mundane things to deal with, but don't consume yourself with that. Take the time to feel joy. There's so much joy around you, just being with your family or just being out in nature. Focus on the joy right now. Stop staying in the fear at every moment. That's the only thing I'm saying, because right now we're actually given time to figure out what we want to focus on and to create what we want in the future. I hope that helps.
Can I say something real quick?
Yep.
I used to be as a younger person, I was into punk rock, and we always had this question: so what? So what? So what? So what is, Mr. and Mrs. Fear? And I like to ask people questions, and anybody who watches any of my videos knows that I ask questions and I poke the bear with the stick. Well, how do you get people to feel? How do you get them to move? How do you get them to think? The government gaslights you and everybody gets all wired up. But I was given, the guides asked me to ask questions last week in one of my videos. And I asked, have you had enough to eat today? Do you have a place to sleep today? Right now, is there a roof over your head? And you bring them into the moment, bring them into their feet, bring them into their ass, bring them into their heart, bring them into their breath, bring them into their fire. Oh yeah, I did eat today. Oh yeah. I have food in the refrigerator. Oh yeah, I have a roof over my head. Is everything paid right now? Yes. Oh, okay. No, okay. It's only Saturday. It's only Saturday. Trying to figure out what we are doing or we are saying or we are thinking it only adds gasoline to the fire. We have to bring it down into a microcosm of the you, of the I, right here, right now, the we. Right here, right now, are you okay? Can I hug you? Is there something I can do for you? Because we don't know what people think. We keep talking like we do, but we don't. I don't know what my clients are feeling until they tell me or I ask them. I don't presume anything. I don't assume anything, because it makes a complete ass out of me and it makes a complete ass out of you. So as teachers and healers and and medicine people and mystics and spiritualists and philosophers and whatever we are. As a man speaketh, as a woman speaketh, so are they in their heart. We have to be really careful with other people's fear. I have the same fears. I just have tools to adjust to the fear. How do I react to it? Well, I ate this morning. I had coffee and I had breakfast. I'm good. I'm good till lunch, right? We bring it in. We bring it small. Forget the world. Excuse my language. Fuck the world. Forget all that. Bring it into the microcosm of the you and I, the I and you, right here, right now.
Okay, Jill?
When he was just saying that, it just brought me back to my Native American apprenticeship. And Pathweaver told us to think of the worst possible scenario that could possibly happen. And if you can be okay with that, you're good. So what we have to do is get ourselves to a place where we can handle the worst possible thing. What would you do in that situation? What else could? You can't go any lower. Everything has changed. So when you're down here, you know eventually you're going to go up here. That's just the way the world works.
But
So
that's relative. That's relative to the person.
But if you look back through your lifetime, look how much you've grown. You didn't think you could make through certain instances, but you did. You're still here. You're still alive. So look at your strengths. Look how strong you've become through these adversities and these challenges. I know people are not going to like things I say. It's just that I've been through enough that I can look at the big picture and realize this is tough. Being on Earth is tough. I mean, this is what I call hell. But it helps us to be the magnificent people that we are, because we are all possibilities. This is giving us a chance to really use our abilities, like our brain and our creativity, and think, well, don't really like what I'm seeing right now. What can I do to change this? Don't focus on what you can't do right now. Think about what you can do. I see people coming out of the woodwork, even on TV, they're actually showing good things now, of people that are stepping out and helping each other, and whether it's their time or their money or their abilities. I see the good as well as the negativity. So what can you do instead of, let's say you don't have any money? What can you still do to help a neighbor or something? There's so much you're still able to do. So use your gifts. Anyway, that's it.
So that takes me to the next question. What are 3 tools to help people live a life centered in love?
Three spiritual keys: convergent love, take responsibility for your thoughts. No, we can only succeed together.
But how do we put that into practice? What are the tools to stay centered in love?
To stay centered in love, for me, Lloyd, it's getting up every morning and starting every morning with gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this gift of life. Thank you for this opportunity to be of service. Thank you for a day that I get to create. Despite what anybody else is doing, I get to ground into this body and I get to be the creative force in my life today. So for me, it's gratitude, living and moving and walking in gratitude.
Okay, so gratitude. Live a life of gratitude to live a life of love.
I have a quote of gratitude that's on the bottom of all my emails, and it goes like this: gratitude is a daily investment.
I like that.
It's a daily investment. And sometimes it's second to second, minute to minute, day to day,
Yeah.
hour to hour, all those things. It's like we have a pretty big forgetter, you know, and sometimes we just need to be reminded, hi, human. Oh, whew. Okay, relax your shoulders. Okay, be here now. Just be here. Let's walk, don't run. I have to remind myself and others to walk, don't run. You know, fear is over there. Fear is not here. Fear is over there. And why do I need to go chase fear? I don't need to go chase it. I had to transmute that stuff over 50 plus years. So why would I go chasing something with, like I did with, you know, smothering it in alcohol and removing spirit for 20 years? Why would I do that? I don't. I can't. I won't. So Mr. Friend, Mr. Client, Mr. Neighbor, Mr. Mom, my child, my friend, whoever, be here now. It's okay to be human. It's okay to have those feelings. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I think that connecting with people and letting them know that it's just okay is a tool that we overlook. It's just okay. You know, it's okay. Let's go grab a glass of water. Have you had drink a glass of water? Make it real simple. We give complicated answers to really simple issues and real simple problems. And, you know, that's when people get pissed off and talk about woo-woo. They're like, give me a break already. Break it down and make it simple. Don't make it difficult. It's real easy. Hi, human. It's only Saturday. Well, why are you worried about lunch when you haven't even had breakfast? That's anxiety. You know, just give them small reminders that are simple that they can actually maybe relate to and breathe into. You know, instead of making it difficult. I love the simplicity of what we do, but we overshoot the mark. The word sin means to overshoot the mark, to miss the mark. You know, there's no bullseye in sin. But if we can just give them little bits, little nuggets, you know, little nuggets, and you all have them. We all have them. We just have to like sift through the shaft to get to the wheat. I hope. There's that Bible again.
Okay. Anyone else? 3 tools to help people live a life-centered. David, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll throw out one tool, which is doing a daily deep meditation. Allowing your mind to, and I use the mantra technique, like from TM or Deepak, but allowing your mind to just settle down to the place of awareness, which is the source of creation, which is the source of love. So you allow your mind to go to the source of love without even thinking about where it's going. And I agree that the ideas about having gratitude, that helps. Things that, you know, mental things to remind yourself. But this technique is not a mental technique. Your awareness, when your awareness goes down to that level where the love starts, it infuses itself in your own awareness. And you can back up and then you go back in the afternoon and you do a meditation in the afternoon if you do twice a day. But every time you do that, you're immersing yourself at that level, and you may not even recognize it as being at that level. But over time, you will recognize that you start feeling love without even thinking about trying to feel like love. It just comes. You just become it because you've immersed yourself in it over and over again. So that's my.
Okay. So meditation, gratitude, one more.
I think, you know, we're like houseplants, only a little more complex. We need water, we need food, we need sunshine. You know, we need to be outside, and grounding in the earth is one of those things that when I tell somebody, you know, just go outside, hug a tree, sit on the ground, people are like, what? I'm not going to sit on the ground. My pants are going to go. Okay, take a blanket, sit on the ground. You know, grounding ourselves is so invaluable, and people are disconnected from the earth. You know, we talk about crystals and selling tons of crystals, and I have them all over the place. These are great grounding tools, but the truth is we can entrain with the earth, you know, and that's what it means to be outside, and we start experiencing nature. We're entraining with the biggest crystal in our environment, which is Mother Earth. So, you know, half of the time it can be fixed by, hey, even if it's raining out, like the only reason rain is uncomfortable is because we're trying to stay dry. You know, when we go out there and accept what's happening, allow the rain to, it's so purifying. It's so experiential. I mean, it just clears out all the cobwebs. And so, you know, I agree. Gratitude is the root ball of my spirituality. If I don't start the day thinking about what I'm grateful for, you know, it's a bad day usually. And if I'm not drinking enough water, and we kind of blow off self-care as this, because it's this idea that it's chocolates and baths, but self-care is really about caring for the self. It's putting yourself to bed early. It's feeding yourself clean, good food. It's drinking clean water. It's walking. It's moving your body. It's sitting in meditation if that's something that's good for you, you know, or just being mindful of how is this affecting my body? Because when I am mindless, meaning I'm just doing things. I'm doing things by rote. I'm working out of wounds. That means, okay, then I'll sit and binge watch Netflix for 3 days because it feels good at the time. I'll sit and eat a gallon of ice cream because at the time it feels good. That's not self-care. That's self-punishment. And we feel shitty after that. I mean, sorry to excuse my French, but we feel bad after we do that. You know, we don't usually feel good. We want to throw up after we eat a gallon of ice cream. We want to throw up after we drink a gallon of Jack Daniels. We want to throw up after we've been in Netflix. We're ungrounded. So grounding and starting our day with the idea that we're going to be mindful. And again, another blow off word, but it's about being aware of where the mind's going at all times, and being aware of, you know, not that you have to judge it, but just being aware of it makes sure that we can reorient to what we want. There's nothing wrong with having ice cream if that's what you want and you've thought about it and you've thought it through. But I've got lactose intolerance. You know, if I eat ice cream, I'm going to get sick. I have to be mindful of what I'm putting in there, in my body, in my vessel. So sorry to go on so long, but I'm passionate about self-care.
I hope.
And that, you know, at this time, and I don't think any of us can say we don't have the time for self-care. But you're right, and it is, you know, and one of the things you were talking about Netflix, one of the things that I've greatly shifted over the last, I'm going to say 4 months, was the content of what I watch. Because, and Katie Ann is laughing because, you know, I'm her son, and she taught me when I was a kid, you know, end of world movies are awesome. You know what? When you're trying,
The world
trying
always
to stay,
survives. They always live.
when you're trying to stay centered in love, watching the end of it is the wrong thing to do. It's like, yeah, because your whole vibration changes.
Yeah.
You know, you see this shit happening. It's like, wow. So I did an experiment. I'm like, all right, you know, they say stop watching violence because it's going to raise my vibration. I'm like, I'm going to try that. And I did. I stopped watching violent shows, violent movies. And then one day I was like, all right, I'm going to watch one and see what happens. And I felt terrible the next day. I was like, holy shit, one movie lowered my vibration that much. So I still watch TV. I still watch Netflix, but I watch the content of what I'm watching now because it does. It's like, it just slams your vibration down. It's like, wow.
Does that mean you won't watch any future Games of Thrones or anything?
it's kind of doubtful that I won't watch it.
He's not a monk.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, these are all great things, and if you are going to binge watch, be conscious of what you're binge watching because of the way they can affect your vibration. Leslie and I the other day, it was her birthday, and we sat at the house and we didn't do a lot. We sat on the sofa with the dog most of the day, and we watched Fast and Loud. We watched them building cars. That's pretty cool. Those guys built some really neat cars. So it was like, all right, this is okay. We were together. The dog was there. The content of what we were watching wasn't terrible. Afterwards, we're both like, wow, we didn't do anything today, which never happens for us. We're always busy. We're always doing something. So that was kind of nice to just not do anything that day.
Keep in mind that doing nothing is doing something.
Doing something. Yep.
Yeah.
You're right. Yep. All right. Let's find another question here. If love is the way, I mean, love, we know coming into a lifetime that from soul, we're coming here to experience love. And then we're born into a family that doesn't know about unconditional love. And I experienced that with many people where they didn't know what love was because they were born into a family that didn't know what love was. But yet we came here with this, as a soul, you're going to go to earth to experience love and to change the energy of that family. How do we do that? How do we help people that weren't born into this place of unconditional love to learn about unconditional love?
When I met the monk that came to Ripshaw,
Yeah.
I teared up when we were talking because he said at the age of 6, he was taken away from his family and taken to the monastery where they taught him how to hold that vibration, a pure oneness, a pure connection to source. And I looked at him and I cried and I started tearing up. I said, I can't imagine anyone taking my child away from me, when they're 6 years old. And he said, but it's an honor because we are taught the ways of the masters. He said, I still have a mom, I still have a dad, but he said, we're taught the way of the masters. And then, the Arturians are a beautiful race of beings. They feel very angelic to me. And they don't allow every parent to raise their child. And so, I believe everybody knows we are hardwired to know love, to be loved. We're hardwired, and then the stuff that happens in childhood, why childhood needs to be so difficult. I don't have the answer to that one. I watched my Kaylee Grace, who is 2 years old, and that child knows only love. She is creative. She's imaginative. She loves the chime. She loves the drum. She comes in here every chance she gets and grabs a hold of one of my crystals and, but she also loves the tiniest stone she can find outside. And so her life is full of magic. And so to me, how do I, where I am in my life today, get up every day and know that the same magic that is available to a 2-year-old is available to me? Well, a 2-year-old doesn't take life so seriously. My husband, Alan, used to say, seriousness causes reincarnation. you know, and to me, that to
Oh,
me
that's
kind of
great.
says it all, you know, that we can't take it so seriously that we forget that we are hardwired to love. And look at all of us. We all, I can speak for myself, we all have a childhood story. We would not be the teachers we are today without those childhood stories that have led us into the path of healing. I believe that you can learn the same lesson through joy and peace as you can hardship. I really truly do. And so the answer to me is watching Kaylee grow up. And, you know, that child, she insisted on trying to fly before she could walk. She really thought she could fly. Unfortunately, our DNA has taken us into a two-legged, we walk. But these children know they're born to fly. And it's the same thing for us. We were born to thrive. And so, Lloyd, when you say, you know, we're born into these families, it's the soul commitment that I will be what you've asked me to be so you can be that which you need to be. May we seek to do this on earth in love. I don't know if I answered the question, but for me, it's about appreciating the magic every day of this life that I'm given. And knowing that even during the outer world experiences, the magic is still there.
You know, as a child coming to this soul, coming to this world, I'm pure light, I'm pure love, I believe. But I didn't believe that as a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 40-year-old or the alcoholic 30-year-old, right? So I go to church, and I go to church to get salvation because they tell me, see, these well-meaning people tell me that if you go to church, you can get salvation, you can get saved, you can get Jesus, you can find God. Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I get sober, I get arrested through my debauchery and my nonsense, and I go to Alcoholics Anonymous because that's where the judge sent me. And I'm sober 28 years, and I make use of the tools while I'm there. I no longer go there. I no longer go to church. You know why? Because what I learned was I am pure light. I am pure life. I am pure love. I take salvation to church, to take it to them, to share that with them, to share in it with them, not to extract from there, because I am that in the world. I walk with that. I am that. I am the I am that I say I am. And in sobriety, I had to stop going to meetings because I kept saying, my name's Anthony and I'm an alcoholic. Well, no, I'm not. Their same book says, we 100 people have recovered from a seemingly is the biggest word in the sentence, hopeless place, state of mind and body. Well, I'm not hopeless. I've never been hopeless. I was helpless and I became hopeful, but I was never hopeless. So I'm the light, I'm the love. Did I experience a pretty shitty childhood? Yeah, I did. But guess what? I overcame. Okay, the Mayan tradition teaches that 0 to 51 is the duality of the first half of life. The first half of life are duality of lifetimes, and 52 to 104 is the second half. I become an elder at 52. I became an elder at 52, and I didn't even know it. Nobody sent me the damn invitation.
You know, Anthony, I always tell people life got better at 50. It just everything opened up at 50. Was the magic year.
Now, also, there are so many young people who I live in Sedona. There's a lot of wounded healers here. And a lot of them give themselves a name. Sorry, not sorry, I'm going to call it out. Give themselves a name. They tell you that they're shamans and they're on a shamanic path and they're like 20 something. Well, really? You don't have Jack wisdom at 20 something. You have Jack wisdom about 14 years old when you're 20, but when you become 52 and become an elder, I'm telling you, the wisdom accelerated in me, and I was willing to, I don't know why. I have no idea why. Became willing to listen and listen to the guides and listen to you and listen to your wisdom, but also listen to the false prophets out there that say things that, no, that's not right. And you guys hear me. I like to stand in the middle, not on either side. I stand in the middle and I look at the pros and the cons, and I'm no con. I am no con. I am pure light. I am pure love. Owa-e, owa-e, owa-e is a song that I sing that was channeled through me. And owa-e means this: I am joy, I am love, I am spirit, and I am light. And if I am, you are. And if you are, we are. Aho. And I don't have to go out looking for it anywhere. I become it through the wisdom of others, through the wisdom of the challenges of that shitty family that I used to blame for my life. They're not a shitty family. They can only rear with the capacity that they have. If they don't have the capacity because they had a shitty family, where are they going to learn it? Right? There's thousands and thousands of books in this world to tell us how to become, how to grow, right? Self-help books. But did they live in your house? Did they live with your soul? Did they live with your traumas, shames, hurts, wounds, and all those things? No. And I've come to say over the last few weeks, there are no books that teach what I do. And you all could probably say the same thing. Although some of you will go into your head and go, oh no, yes, there is. But I say there are no books to teach what I do. I am the book. I have returned to the oral tradition, because those people didn't live in my house. They didn't take the ass whooping that I took. They didn't take the alcoholism that I had to experience from an adult or whatever it was that I experienced. So I take my experiences and I transmute them into pure light, because I am the I am that I say I am. Oh.
No, go ahead.
I would agree, and I've been an elder much longer than you. And yes, I think certainly listening and not commenting are two really, really important things that I gained. One thing I do disagree with you is we meet many very gifted young people. Now, I don't know about the label they put on themselves, but we meet many young people with many gifts, very powerful, very grounded. I don't know about their families, but very powerful. One of the most gifted people we ever met was six. They were the gifts he came in with. They weren't from his family. I mean, they were nice, but they weren't gifted people. So I will recognize some of them. And yes, there are some charlatans. I agree. And again, I'm not much on the labels and what they call themselves. You know, I mean, you and I are going to talk to them, and we're going to feel their energy and feel their words. And I'm not going to discount them because they're 20. But I know I have a lot more experience. However, they may have come in with a lot more gifts at times. So I'm going to listen to them. And they've always told us, you can learn from the beggar on the street. Don't discount the beggar on the street.
You just use the word experience, and that's what I listen for, is the experience, because that for me is what I share, my experience. I can't share my knowledge because so what, right? But my experience speaks volumes, because you may need the help that I have to offer at that particular time. So I'm really not discounting them. I'm just like, they don't have your wisdom or your wife's wisdom or Lloyd's wisdom or my wisdom, or, you know, it's different levels of that. But yes, gifts are absolutely there, I hope.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Go ahead.
speaking of that, there are people who have lived thousands of lifetimes, and there are some who have only lived a few lifetimes. So yet all that knowledge from all those lifetimes, all those experiences have made them what they are today. So yeah, I guess we can't really go by, and I really do believe that anyone who really has a lot of knowledge is not going to be going around saying, well, I am this, I am that, I am this, all this powerful person, you need to listen to me. I think the person who is really a shaman or something is going to be very humble, and he's not going to be saying, oh, like, look at me, they're going to see what I can do.
The guides always tell us to discount them. Other thing the guides always tell us is humans are too serious. The star beings always tell us humans are too serious. Have fun.
Yeah.
And even in these times, have fun. As several people said, go out in nature. One thing that we do when we're on lockdown or whatever it is, every other day at least we go out in nature. We go out and hike. We go communicate with the stone people, the plant people, and especially the birds. We're fortunate. We connect with eagles almost every time we go out. All kinds of hawks, turtles, et cetera, et cetera. But we go out, and another thing they always tell us is if we're out and we're hiking along in nature, and they'll say, are you here for cardiovascular exercise? What? No. Slow down, pay attention to the details. You're missing too much. You're missing that stone that's getting your attention. You're missing that tree. You're missing that red tail that's sitting over there in the tree. And then Lloyd listens to it and it says, all right, when you leave, that mouse is going to start moving, and then I'm going to go down and have lunch. But that's all about paying attention to your surroundings, not being out there with your phone, not being out there with your headphones, just experiencing what there is to experience. And they'll point out, we're showing you all these animals, all this nature, so you can enjoy it and you can appreciate it.
And learn from it.
And learn from it. So that's a simple lesson that we all can do. We just have to pay attention to it. And it's joyous.
Okay. I had a question here. Let's see. In the experience of love, not choosing sides is important. How do we coexist without letting the experiences of others pull us away from love? Go ahead, Jill.
I think when we were in Sedona in February, there was a Pleiadian who came and he said that he can say one sentence, but it could take a year to actually understand the sentence, because even with the word, you have to experience all sides. So everyone is going to have, if you listen to one person, you get the kind of their perspective, but that's only because they got their perspective by their experiences. And then you listen to someone else and listen to their experiences and why they're thinking the way they do. There is no right and wrong. It's just a matter of perspective. But everyone, the only way you can become rich and really know and understand something is if you take all the possibilities, all the understandings, everybody's experience, and then kind of mold it to what you want.
Right, but how does being part of that experience and not getting pulled into their experience, how do you stay in that center? You know, let other people have the experience that they're here to have, but you have your own experience. And yes, I agree that their collective experiences can be a tool for you to build on, but how do you stay in love and in the center and not get pulled one way or the other?
What I try to do is realize that I am part of the creator. In my center right here, in my heart, there's a spark. I know I am a piece of the creator. So therefore, I am love. Everything else is love. And these are just experiences. Go ahead, you wanted to.
Some of them are good.
Yes, yeah, some are not good. Well, but they all lead to something good.
Lloyd,
Yeah.
what was the original question?
The original question was, in the experience of love, not choosing sides is important. How do we coexist without letting the experiences of others pull us away from love?
Okay, usually when I get pulled into an experience that isn't in alignment with love, I've been triggered.
Mhm.
And that's about me.
Yep.
You know, that's if someone triggers me, if I can't stand to hear someone talk, that's about me. And so for me, you know, many years ago they said, dear one, you must allow people to have the experiences they need to have, and no judgment on that. It's just experiences that they need to have that I may not choose to participate in. But for me, when I get pulled in, or when I say I can't stand to listen to somebody or whatever it is, go into the other room when President Trump's on or whatever it is, I have a trigger, and that's not about that person. That's about me. And so I work on releasing my triggers, understanding. Angie said it a while ago, with our clients, we're really good at helping them unravel. Because I do believe you have to unravel. You know, when we're triggered in 2020, it has nothing to do with 2020 and everything to do when, you know, I was 6 years old. That's where those triggers are going to be found, not in 2020. And so many people focus on, well, they said this, they did that, they did this to me. And it's not that. If I have that reaction, that's about my trigger, and that's the time to keep my mouth shut. You know, whenever I'm triggered, it's not a teaching moment. If we're triggered, it's an opportunity to just keep our mouth shut and go back and ground and come back to the center and say, okay, what was that about? Why was I so upset about that experience? What threatened me? And so for me, it always comes back to going back to that place of, Katie girl, you're out of alignment. It's not the rest of the world that's out of alignment at that point. I'm out of alignment. And when I come back into alignment, the world can do whatever it wants because I'm in alignment.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, and I think it goes back to what Katie Anna was saying earlier about the child who is 2 and only every experience is curiosity and awe.
Yeah.
I mean, we're always on a fact-finding mission about us, you know? And
Yeah.
so when we're triggered, it's like a big red flag, like pay attention. I mean, just because you're feeling it doesn't mean you have to act out on it. And, you know, my teachers, you know, she always says, you have to name it to tame it, but then you have to feel it to heal it. So when we start feeling it is the time when we can start healing it. So, you know, for me, when I get triggered in that way and I'm in the middle of, you know, hearing 2 sides, and I'm, you know, I'm an opinionated know-it-all, and I have been trying to, like, I should say I'm a recovering know-it-all, you know? So it's like, it's a default setting for me to think I know better, you know? So I have to, when I get that triggered and I'm like, oh, I better tell them where, you know, what I think, you know, it's really none of my business. It's none of their business what I think. And so I have to really go back and look at, like, what is it that I'm not feeling right now? What part of the child is not getting heard? And, you know, my teacher always says, you take up the wounded child and you put her in the papoose and say, you know, the adults got it from here. You know, I don't have to react now. And we can keep that child, like, awe and wonder about why am I angry? Why am I feeling this? Just because we feel something doesn't mean we have to act on something. So.
And
thank you for talking about whose business it is, because I've taken to telling people, you are not my business until you make you my business. You didn't ask me. Not everybody wants my damn opinion, right? And if I have an opinion every time, that comes from my place of low self-esteem, where I have to climb to the top of the ladder. I don't need to be in the top of the ladder. I'm afraid of heights. Why the hell do I want to be up there? You know, being able to say, I yield, and I apologize for stepping on somebody's toes, on your toes.
That's all right. I was just going to say to Angie, you know, when she said about her little girl, she puts it on her back. I always go, okay, kiddo, it's time to put you in angel daycare. Because what we learned as children was to dissociate from the experience. And now in 2020, I stay here. I don't give it to my kid. I don't, you know, that triggered kid. It's like, that's a time to reel it in. And so for me, it is about identifying, taking care of that small part of me, you know, that was as free as my granddaughter to a certain point until she wasn't. You know, so for me, it is about letting that unravel, but not through the child, through the adult.
Yeah, because we talk about our inner child, but we don't talk about our inner mother a lot, or inner father, or inner parent. Who's parenting the inner child? If we're only talking about the inner child, I mean, we can't let our child run the show. And so and where I was wounded, the time I was wounded is the age I'm acting out at. You
Amen.
know, when someone's cutting you off in traffic and they start throwing a tantrum and screaming and blah, 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 you know, that's like a 5-year-old. And you're like, what happened to you at 5? You're throwing a tantrum in the middle of the floor, you know? We can tell how is that person reacting, you know? If they're in that 12-year-old stage, they're like, oh, you know, no one likes me, you don't like me, you're not, you know, that's a teenager response, you know. So it's interesting. Anyway, sorry.
That brings me back to when you
I was going to say, I saw a meeting when I first became a healer. I'm sorry, go ahead, Lloyd.
When you said about the 5-year-old in the car, because I get triggered when I'm driving frequently, and that brings me back to a time when I might have been 5, and I was in the car with my mom and dad, and it wasn't a good experience. So that may be what that trigger is right there. Wow, thanks, Angie. That might have just helped me.
You got it.
Uncover another wound from.
Well, I used to curse in Italian because I didn't want my kids to know what I was saying, and then I changed it. I decided that every person I was going to yell at, I was going to put child of God at the end. So I'd be like, F you, child of God. And that changes the whole, you can't cuss when you use child of God at the end of that. You can't yell, you know, and it changed my entire experience of driving when I started calling people child of God. And I would get mad and be like, child of God. And it was so healing. It changed my experience of driving to be an experience of love and connection instead of the disconnection that I had been feeling, because it was a triggering place for me to drive. Sorry to interrupt, Walking Crow.
No. I'm this is fascinating for me because I don't often get to interact in this way with people and listen, and you know, it's not often this way. But years ago, when I first became a healer, or I was being trained to become a healer, I went to see a medium friend of mine, and she did a 1 hour reading for 3 hours. And one of the things she said to me was, you left your child behind. You left the wounded child behind. You have to take that child and bring that child forward and integrate him with the man, with Anthony, now Walking Crow, right? And I was like, well, how am I going to do that? So I read, somebody gave me the book, the Ho'oponopono, and through that tool, learning how to apologize to my child and forgiving myself for leaving the child behind and bringing the child forward, instead of the child throwing tantrums and trying to be the parent, as I fused him and I together as adult and child in my after 50, it became apparent that I was the parent. Oh, hear the word? These are the things that the guides give me while I'm walking through this stuff. It became apparent that I'm now the parent because I brought that. I no longer have to be childish, but I can be childlike and playful, like the dolphin. It jumps in the air, it jumps out of the water, it becomes very playful. I've learned to be the child within again, with not having to be the jackass all the time. Because that was me. Oh, there comes that asshole. You know? Like, not having to live up to that moniker is such a relief. You know. And I get to sit next to the child. He gets to sit in my lap. Sometimes I sit in his. And it's beautiful.
Okay, so it's 1:15. Let's take 2 minutes for each of you to kind of wrap up where we are. And we'll start with David here. So 2 minutes about just living this life in the center and being a heart-centered love.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to tell someone to do that. I think they have to, at some point, be able to experience it.
How do you do it?
And pay it. It's nothing intellectual. I don't have a bumper sticker. I just feel it now. I just feel it now. And so and the older I get, the more I feel it. And I just feel the stability of being able, of having a broader view than a lot of people, and not feeling that I have any responsibility for anybody else, though I'll be, as we mentioned, I'll be glad to offer any guidance, but I don't have any, it's my own, my reaction. And I know my reaction is, if I'm having a bad reaction, it's not you, that it's me. And so I'm aware, but that requires being aware of what you're doing. So we have to have some way to grow that witness, whatever it takes, present moment awareness, discussions, being aware of what you're aware of, I don't know how to tell somebody how to live in love, but somehow I've managed to stumble onto it over time.
Right.
I had my upbringing wasn't. Am I at 2 minutes yet?
Yep, you're pretty. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that with my upbringing, I wasn't aware much of love. It wasn't discussed in my family. And at some point, I got married, and my wife was the thing that broke open my awareness of love. And then my children. But somehow I've managed to just grow that. And that's all I can say in 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Jill.
I realize that I'm doing the best I can at this moment. So I have to be patient with myself and others, because whatever I do with myself, I have to be with others. I pay a lot more attention to my self-talk. So I've become trying to make it a habit. So if I feel like I'm saying some negative things about myself, I immediately stop and change that into a positive. I figure that's one way of raising my vibration. And I always try to look at the big picture. Whenever there's people talking, I always try to, and the saying is there's always 3 sides to every story. So I try to look at those things and figure out where they're coming from and see what I agree with and what I don't agree with and what parts I want to take for myself. I use my body as a communication device because that's what I think it is. And if I'm saying something negative, like, oh, well, that was stupid, and I feel my body and where it is in my body and like, well, let me change that. Okay, well, I just didn't make the best choice at that time, and I know I can change that. That feels a little bit better. And then just, kind of go from there. But I just have to be gentle with ourselves for one, and love ourselves through everything, and have patience and enjoy the whole process. And I know someday I'm going to go home and I'm gonna love it there. But I gotta love myself here in this lifetime too.
Thank you. Noel.
Well, again, I ground with the first things that I do in the morning and connect. And I recommend that for everyone, however you do it, and do it with intention. I set my intention for the day, and it's going to be different every day. Of course, I want it to be in love, but I'm going to state that intention. I'm going to make that intention known, and I'm going to ask for any assistance that I can be given to accomplish that. I'm going to pay attention to the details, slow down, be patient. I'm going to recognize what's going the way I would hope it would and what wouldn't. And again, if it's not, I'm going to slow down and have my right speech to correct that. And of course, right speech comes with paying attention to the details and using the proper word and the proper energy for that. I'm going to practice, 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 and I'm going to enjoy everything that I do and send that love out. And everyone is going to take that as they choose. I was a counselor for 40 years. And what I would say was for them to utilize as they saw fit, put something new in their fund of knowledge a lot of times for them to utilize today, tomorrow, or never. And practice, 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 and have a happy life.
Thank you. Katie Anna.
What's the question again?
Just a wrap up of what we've been talking about today.
This journey we're on isn't a marathon. It's not how quick you finish it. It's a journey. And every day I just seek to stay open to love. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. Last week during the retreat that we had, the virtual retreat, since we're not in Sedona this week, the phrase they kept giving us was, with every step you take, imprint kindness, generosity, and love. And I'm really holding that near to my heart for myself. Not just for other people, but I can't give to anybody else what I don't have for myself.
Oh,
And so I ask myself every day, am I being kind? Am I being generous? Am I being loving to myself? You know, we talk about that little girl, little boy. When you mentioned that 5-year-old in you, the mother in me went, oh God, I remember that day. It was a horrific experience,
Mhm.
you know, and I remember that day. The problem is when that happened, I was a 3-year-old. You might have been 5, but your mother was sitting in that same situation and was 3 and didn't know how to take care of you or how to protect you.
Yep.
Today, the woman I sit here today goes, I take responsibility for that 3-year-old so I can take responsibility for my children and for my children's children and my grandchildren. And I don't beat myself up for what I could have, would have, should have done better, because in that moment, and that happened to you when you were 5, I was doing the very best I could.
Absolutely.
And so that brings me back to a state of grace. And so when I can reach that state of grace, it's been a good day. And it's been a good life.
Thank you. Walking Crow.
you know, I really, see, it brought emotion into my heart. What your mom just said about being the 3-year-old, being able to be vulnerable and say that in front of her son and her peers. Oh, that is so important. The allowance of that, right? I do a lot of teaching and people receive a lot from me. But what I have to say about that, if they do or if they don't, and how they do and how they don't, is none of my business. I only know that what I give to myself is what I give to others. You know, your mom just said, you can't give away what you haven't got. You know, if you're trying to be in love, but you're in anxiety, sorry. If you're stressed out and you're trying to share love, it's like, sorry, you have to come into a place of that. I don't always have the ability to be in the world. The Americans like to talk about control. Lack of power is my dilemma. Lack of power is my dogma. I learned that in Alcoholics Anonymous. Lack of power, if it's mine, it's yours, it's ours. So it's all encompassing for me. So I'm only going to give away what I have experience with. If I don't have experience with it, shut my mouth, lamb shoulder, shut my mouth. And I don't give away what I haven't got. I can't. You know, that's why I say I'm the book. I'm the channel. I'm the spoken word, the oral tradition, and I have to be generous and gracious with that. And I don't look for people who have grace to do that. I look for people and allow it, because we all have grace regardless of how we feel about ourselves. In Alcoholics Anonymous, I really used to take issue when somebody would stand on the podium and they would puff up their chest, and there would be a drunk in the room with 2 days or something, you know, or 5 minutes, not even, they're still breathing alcohol. And they would say, there but for the grace of God go I. And I would sit there and like, excuse my language, who the fuck are you to judge that person and to think your status is that much more? No, I'm just as, I have grace like the drunk has grace, like the president has grace at their own level in their own way, and it's none of my damn business. Grace is grace. And what's interesting is the first talk I ever gave was on grace, and there was 3 people in the room, 4 people, I was the 4th, and we were all in tears because we all understood that grace was grace. It wasn't my business to dole it out to whoever, like religion does. Religion doles it out. Ego doles it out. Let go of my ego. Remove a G. Let go of my ego. I hope. You know, I have to let people know that if I'm going to learn how to be humble, I'm going to do it out in the open, not in secret. Right? And I'm not going to talk about being humble out in the open. I'm just going to be walking crow. I'm just going to be as I am, whatever state at that particular given time, that's what I'm going to give, because I don't have anything else. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here, right? And if I get into later today, that's anxiety. So I just need to be present and just share the mirror what presence looks like to somebody else with my words or my presence and my actions. More my actions than my words, because you know how words are, So I am where love lives, and I am what hope looks like. You are where love lives. You are what hope looks like. We are where love lives, and we are what hope looks like. I hope.
Thank you. And Angie?
Yeah, I mean, I think love is an action word, and the action I know for love is first the act of self-care and loving myself. I got chills when Katie Anna was talking and when she said she was a 3-year-old, because that's truth. It's the authenticity of those words, and we know that feeling. We know the feeling when it's with us every day. So I often get asked, what do you do every day for your spiritual journey? And I'm like, all of the things. Like I can't, what works for me is not going to work for you. But I do know that I have to be authentic to what I need on a day-to-day basis. And that's starting with gratitude and continuing out from there. It means telling myself you need to drink more water, you need to eat clean food, I do all those things because that's love in action. That's love to the self in action. And then going out from there, I want to be a loving mother, daughter, partner, friend, colleague, and I'm going out, and then I can be a good teacher. And but if one of those things is missing, it doesn't feel authentic to me. So I need to begin by this loving the self and moving out from there. So if somebody is struggling with fear, how do you love yourself? That's where I would tell them to start. What are the things that work for you? And I make lists. I have pros and, all these lists. What works when I'm jammed up? And I write that when I'm doing good. I don't write it when I'm jacked up, because when I'm jacked up, it's TV and ice cream and, alcohol. I do it when I'm feeling good, and I write the list, and then I know what's working. It works when I sit still and meditate. It works when I journal it out. It works when I do art. It works when I get barefoot and go outside and commune. It works when I am drinking a lot of water. It works when I'm calling people I love and saying, what are you up to right now? Not me. What are you up to? I don't want to dump. I want to hear. I want to be a service to the next person. And when I do those things that work, I feel good. I am love. I act love. I don't get as upset when somebody cuts me off in traffic. I just go ahead. It's all right. Go ahead in front of me. That's where I judge my spiritual condition. How am I talking to my husband, and how am I talking to the person cutting me off in traffic? Those are the two ways I know how I'm doing spiritually. And so anyway, just self-care is the walk of love. So
Thank you. And again, thank you to everyone.
Thank you for hosting.
yes, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd.
You're welcome.
Leslie.
Many blessings and much love.
Love you all.
Enjoyed all the communication and the interaction. Thank you all.
Yes, very nice.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Thank
You
you.
as well. Much love.
Oh, 是那时候是。